Hello, welcome everybody. We're going to be kicking things off in just a minute. You can see that people are starting to join. Welcome. While everybody is starting to tune in, we'd appreciate if you could share your profession and where you are tuning in from in the chat with us. We'd love to know who our audience is so we can tailor our questions to you. You can see our numbers are starting to climb. Welcome, everybody. We're going to be getting started in just a minute. All right, well, it is now 12 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Again, if you haven't already, please share your profession and where you are tuning in from in the chat today. We are thrilled to have you joining us today for Health Promotion Ontario's 2022 webinar series titled Resilience, Recovery, and Renewal in Health Promotion. Today, for our third and last session, we will be focusing on the theme of school health from the kitchen table to the classroom. My name is Nia, and I am a member of Health Promotion Ontario's Professional Development Committee and your moderator for today's session. I'd like to start today's webinar by acknowledging the traditional lands on which we are situated. Today, I am meeting with you virtually from what we now call London, Ontario. I acknowledge that this is the traditional lands of the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Lenape peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. With this, I respect the long-standing relationships that Indigenous peoples have to this land, as they are the original caretakers. I acknowledge the historical and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada. I encourage you to take time to reflect on the traditional land on which you are situated and how you can play a role in renewing respectful relationships with Indigenous communities. Our session today is made possible by our Professional Development Subcommittee, the Ontario Public Health Association, and of course, Health Promotion Ontario. As the voice of health promotion across the province, Health Promotion Ontario seeks to advance the importance of health promotion through professional development, member communication, and advocacy. Consider becoming a member today. We're going to start off with a few housekeeping items. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be available on HPO's website later this month for your convenience. We encourage you to share your questions in the Q&A session and participate in the discussion using the chat box during the presentations. You can also upvote other questions in the Q&A that you would like to see answered. Now let's get started. Our first speaker today is a manager of school and community health at the Temiskaming Health Unit and works to promote health and well-being at the local level. Please help me welcome Amanda Mongeon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today and thinking about school-based health promotion and opportunities for public health. I'm a program manager with Temiskaming Health Unit, Ontario's smallest. I support our work in community and school health and have worked at the health unit since 2006. I'd like to thank Health Promotion Ontario for including me in this webinar and THU for supporting me in doing this. It's been helpful to clarify my thinking and help me be a better support to our school team. I also thank those who shared ideas in putting this presentation together. I grew up and now live, play, and work in Temiskaming District in Northeastern Ontario, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Algonquin, and Cree people, and the Robinson-Huron Treaty. Our school team supports comprehensive school health in 22 public elementary schools that are part of 4 school boards, 2 English and 2 French. We also support 4 private parochial schools and 1 on-reserve Indigenous school, as well as 2 college campuses, 1 adult learning center, and the district's childcare centers. We share all 4 boards with a health unit to our north and 1 also with a health unit to the south. Now, to help understand scale, the smallest public school in our district has 28 students, and the largest has 630. Literature on community resiliency and risk describes an upward spiral where we go through adversity, we learn, change, and then we're better equipped to handle future adversity. Or we don't, and the cycle goes the other way where we instead become more vulnerable. The deep learning and change I described can actually be transformative, which many say is needed to meet the challenges ahead of us. Today, I will share some background on health promotion in schools, then describe our school team's experience from the past couple of years to set us up to daydream a little about how we might meet that goal of learning, growing, and building the resiliency of our students, school communities, and beyond. I'll leave you at the end with a list of resources, and I hope some ideas to discuss amongst ourselves, with your colleagues, and hopefully some energy to step into the opportunity that's before us. Since the Ottawa Charter first described a comprehensive approach to promoting health, a number of global conferences on health promotion have each recommitted to the principles from the Ottawa Charter and added other important commitments: enhancing participation in well-being, promoting healthy communities, addressing socioeconomic factors, and addressing the ecological determinants of health. In Canada, work is also underway to understand and address Indigenous determinants of health. Research on adverse childhood experiences has helped us better understand the role of risk and protective factors and the importance of using a trauma-informed approach in all of our health promotion work. So why schools? Schools are a place where we can reach every child and young person, where we can address inequities and almost all of the factors that determine our health, from healthy behaviors to mental health, to social skills, and to literacy of all kinds. So reading, health literacy, even how to deal with misinformation. As a workplace, schools are an ideal setting to promote health with important secondary benefits to students. But we can't put it all on our schools. We all have a role in supporting young people. We use the social ecological model to help us think about the overlap with life outside the school, in community and in family, each influencing the other. And we use school community to describe everyone involved. So that's staff, students, families, and community partners. The Canadian Healthy School Standards have given us an updated vision for a healthy school as one that integrates policy and action at all levels, looks at strengths and is asset-based, and it's culturally affirming. And it's not just about preventing problems among students, it's bigger than that. It focuses on leader and staff well-being as well as that of students, and it holds everyone responsible for supporting health and well-being, top down and bottom up. Now at THU, we currently have 4 school nurses, each supporting a family of schools, working to build relationships with principals, staff, and students. They work together to identify priorities based on school perspectives and local data. School nurses also develop areas of expertise and draw on one another's knowledge as they work with their individual schools. They're further complemented by a registered dietitian, community health workers, research analysts, and they collaborate with public health promoters who work mostly in the community. Since early 2020, we have worked closer than ever with our school partners through the fast and frequent changes in pandemic guidance and figured out together how to make our way through all the areas of uncertainty. All of our regular health promotion work either stopped or stalled. Everything became responsive to the rapidly changing situation. We used health promotion skills for infection prevention and control communication, education, and supportive environments. We used social media to promote well-being to families. We modified school nutrition programs to be implemented in the community. And we focused our active school travel largely outside the schoolyard and with other community stakeholders. Also, we tailored communications to our parochial schools to help us stay connected. There were so many challenges: turnover, pull amongst competing interests, constant change. Our staff bounced back and forth between the work I've described and case and contact management, and then also vaccine clinics. I don't think I can fully convey how much commitment and hard work our school team and school partners have demonstrated these past 2 years. I feel grateful to have been able to witness this, and I'm very much inspired by it. We worked more closely than ever also with our neighboring health units to build consistent policy and practice in support of our schools. Though while we strengthen relationships with our partners and with schools, we're worried that our relationships with some families may have been compromised. Before we can move on to imagining a new way forward, we need to recover. Our workforces in public health, and I think it's fair to say in schools, are depleted. Public health units have a history of supporting workplace well-being, but we haven't quite figured out how to do this well with schools. There's also urgency to support recovery among students. Studies have documented that the pandemic has had an overall negative impact on children's mental health and behavior, as well as on their levels of physical activity, sedentary behavior, and screen time. It's increased food insecurity, negative educational outcomes, increased injuries occurring at home, and increased reports of child maltreatment. We know that adverse experiences during key formative years can have lifelong implications. And these data are primarily from the first year of the pandemic, so we have yet to appreciate its full impact. That's not to ignore some silver linings of children spending more time with parents and some evidence of improved eating behaviors, but overall, and especially when we factor in disproportionate impacts based on socioeconomic factors, we have a lot of healing to support. So without delay, and despite their own fatigue, schools are investing in strategies to address some of the most immediate impacts of the pandemic, and we are right beside them, ready to help. We also need to watch for opportunities to rebuild relationships with families who may have lost confidence in public health, and to be understanding of their needs to recover from the pandemic as well. So we have a chance, and I think a responsibility really, now to learn from our experience and reimagine how to do things, so that if this were to all happen again, we'd weather it better. When I layer the goals and evidence related to healthy schools with those of healthy communities, these are some of the opportunities I'm looking at for our work at the local level. Can we continue being valuable to schools by complementing their roles and expertise with ours? Can we maintain relationships among leaders, such as medical officers of health and directors of education? Can we enhance our work on board-wide or even cross-board policies, including workplace wellness? Can we expand our work on student resiliency to also work towards the resiliency of our school communities and communities more broadly? And can we integrate concepts like transformative learning to support the societal and structural changes that are needed to really support well-being? We know that student voice matters. Is there a role for public health to play in amplifying it? Can we increase our sharing of power with students, meaningfully incorporate their voices, invite them into shared decision-making, no matter their age, and work together even more to help students build skills and confidence to work on creative solutions to challenges in their community, like climate change, which is having an increasing negative impact on the mental health of young people. Then, can we go even further to bring community in to help with this work, going beyond parent councils and committees? I know we can work better across health unit programs and keep working with our partners at other health units regionally and provincially, creating resources together to reduce duplication of effort and increase consistency. An equity-focused approach continues to be important as well. We often find ourselves contributing more resources to the schools who want to work with us the most, which may not reflect where the greatest potential impact lies and can inadvertently widen equity gaps. And we need to watch big picture conversations about equitable access to quality education, which ties in closely to the importance of quality data and evidence to inform planning and to track our progress. Imagine if we had a dashboard that tracked school community health and well-being indicators over time. Beyond schools themselves, we can monitor and endorse efforts to support healthy public policies that impact our local school settings. Work is ongoing by, for example, OFIA and Ontario Dietitians in Public Health. And we need to keep moving forward in truth and reconciliation. Public health needs to work through the ways that we uphold colonial practices and values and work harder to support Indigenous community well-being and do so in culturally safe ways. And do a better job of crediting our Indigenous communities for all of their strengths and contributions. The pandemic has pushed us to spend more time outside, and this should continue with schools with land-based learning as part of Indigenous reconciliation and to help all young people strengthen their relationships with nature. We need to keep learning, but it is not easy to do. Public health managers are often responsible for several portfolios, and public health staff supporting schools and childcare often also support other programs. So we rely heavily on networks like the Ontario Healthy Schools Coalition and Health Promotion Ontario to help bridge knowledge to practice for us. Other ways of learning, of course, can be networking, reading, using Twitter, listening to podcasts. While I wrap up, I hope you'll take a moment to take a snapshot of this QR code. It'll take you to a handout with references and some resources that I've been reading lately. We need to keep an eye on the big picture, both within schools and as part of the broader community. Using an asset-based approach, public health staff can focus on being of service to our school partners who are already doing tremendous work to support health. We can learn from and listen to each other. We can pay attention to literature on the topic, which is constantly emerging, and commit to a regular practice of self-reflection. And we need to remember that it's all really that we're all imperfect. We all have competing priorities. We're generally under-resourced. We bring a diversity of life experiences, workplace, sector cultures, but with a shared vision and thoughtfulness and kindness, we can be encouraging and pragmatic and help even the small initiatives become pieces of a larger shift to well-being. We have done amazing things together these past 2 years. If we approach well-being in schools with a fraction of the energy we have put into pandemic response, imagine what we could do. Thanks to all of you for exploring this with me today. My contact information is here. I invite anyone interested in chatting further about any of these topics to contact me directly. And I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you for sharing your incredible work with us at the Temiskaming Health Unit, Amanda. Your concluding remarks were very powerful, and I know you've inspired me to keep on learning. So everyone, if you have any questions regarding that presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A portion of the webinar for our discussion, and remember that you can upvote other questions. Next up today, we have Chris Markham, the Executive Director at the Ontario Physical and Health Education Association, OFIA. His work focuses on implementing health interventions within schools that have a positive impact on student health behaviors, assisting in making connections to broader community and supporting health policies. Take it away, Chris.
My name is Chris Markham, and I'm the Executive Director and CEO of OFIA. It is my pleasure today to present on the implementation of school health initiatives during the pandemic and opportunities to strengthen these moving forward. Before I jump in, I want to recognize that Ophia's head office is located on the traditional Indigenous territories of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Mississaugas of the New Credit, and the Métis Nation. We are grateful for the opportunity to be able to meet and work on this territory. By way of introductions and maybe historical context, I will note that Ophia's origins can be drawn all the way back to the last global pandemic that we had. In 1921, Ophia was formed, coming out of the Spanish flu. It was born out of the idea from health educators and public health that children and youth going through the education system needed strong health education, needed strong physical education, needed strong healthy living education. And that needed to be a core focus of the education system. And so that's a bit about where Ophia came from. 100 years later, as we come out of yet another global pandemic, the need for the work of Ophia, we think, remains. So we work across the education system. Within classrooms, we provide supports to educators. We provide support through areas like standards and safety. Regionally, we work with public health units and school boards to support their efforts. And then provincially and nationally, we connect with education and health sector partners to be able to advance our mandate. We know that school health interventions are critical for student health and well-being. Underpinning a lot of that work is the role that teachers play, that school staff play, that the implementation of the curriculum and families and community partners all contribute to. That underpins a solid school health intervention. I want to take a moment to maybe just provide a couple of words around the health and physical education curriculum, which we see as being foundational to a lot of work within the school health space. This curriculum addresses expectations from physical activity to healthy eating, to critical thinking and decision making, to stress management and mental health, substance use. So it is a good foundation for the skills and behaviors that would help children move through a pandemic. What's interesting is that this curriculum, when it was revised in 2010, envisioned an ever-changing world. So for many students, despite the effort of many, and that's government and school board and teachers and public health and parents and all of us, students have lost out on important learning experiences. They have faced social isolation, and they have experienced the loss of safe and stable learning environments. These losses and setbacks will impact an entire generation of students. The health and well-being will have been compromised, and the focus, our perspective is the focus moving forward needs to be to make a significant commitment to minimize the potential damages of the pandemic on kids. And we have some insights around how that might be done. Fundamentally, we strongly believe that schools provide multiple entry points to support student health and well-being, and that schools really do offer up the strongest pathway to facilitate recovery and renewal for a generation of students. We know, however, that over the last couple of years, it's been a challenging environment. We know that school boards have experienced extensive changes in leadership. We also know that school boards and public health units have primarily been focusing their efforts on the management of COVID-19. Where this leaves us is that there is an opportunity for focus on effective approaches that will support student health and well-being. And there is a significant need for us to be able to move together towards this. Maybe taking a bit of a moment to focus around what did we do during the pandemic. Much like other organizations that work with education space, we had to pivot quickly to address changes in the environment. Part of what we did was we spent time asking our audience and reaching out to our network around what would be helpful and what would be useful. Organizationally, we pulled together as a staff. We figured out, working with our contributors, how we were going to support educators in this area. We took time to really focus on the development of easy to use resources. And we also increased and ramped up our communication efforts to provide school boards with the support that they need. The results for us were fairly extensive. We produced a lot of resources. We partnered with a number of organizations to be able to provide resources to those in the field that needed some specific supports. Our observations were that across Ontario, school boards and public health units really did have varied capacities to support effective implementation of some of these school health programs. That was largely impacted by how much time and energy school boards and public health units were putting towards COVID, which made sense. We believe, however, that the ability to be able to quickly ramp up effective school health programming can be accelerated by school boards and public health units prioritizing shared support between between public health and education. We also think that the focus on equity is going to be extremely important as we move forward. COVID-19 illuminated really the complex relationship between social determinants of health, and it's imperative as we move into recovery that we keep these lessons in mind about the equity, and that we keep it in mind really at the forefront of all that we're doing. From a partnership perspective, there's been a greater focus on health protection and disease prevention, and we're seeing that from a whole host of agencies. And this is reasonable. I think it's important, however, to remember that health promotion is an important part of public health, and that a strong and resilient public includes investment into health promotion, generally speaking. So we have also recognized that a number of issues have gotten worse over the course of the pandemic. These issues are urgent. They are in of themselves crises. So if we look at the situation with opioids, of mental health, of well-being, student well-being, child and youth development, including things like screen time, physical activity, sleep, these are issues that have gotten worse over the course of the pandemic and do need immediate attention. We also recognize that the pandemic has enabled a number of opportunities and different ways of doing things that actually have benefited students, and those need to be leveraged and capitalized upon. So for example, the utilization of outdoors as a primary learning environment has a number of benefits. And also for a number of students that may be disabled, the ability to participate through online learning has been one that they had been, those changes had been requested for a number of years, and it was only through the pandemic that different levels of accessibility were able to benefit certain segments of our population. Looking forward, I want to focus on maybe 2 or 3 really specific school health policies that need to be leveraged. The health and physical education curriculum, both the 2009 elementary and the 2015 secondary curriculum, need to be leveraged. These curriculums support the development of skills and strategies that will help build the physical and health literacy of our children and youth, and that includes mental health and well-being. This curriculum was designed to foster student health and well-being. We need to focus on the implementation of this curriculum as a priority. That includes updating classroom supports for health and physical education and a related curriculum. We also need to double down and provide professional learning on this curriculum and other curriculum where we are trying to support the development of skills and knowledge that will benefit kids moving forward. We also feel that healthy schools are best at providing connection points between schools and communities. So we know that interventions are more effective when parents and caregivers and communities are on the same page as the school. So we're also recommending that a focus on healthy schools are important to consider as we move forward. As I conclude, I will state that there are a number of benefits for implementing school health programs that include, from a student perspective, contributing to healthy development, connecting with the world around them and with the health of others. Students will also benefit from developing positive overall health and well-being, mental health, building resiliency. Schools will gain increased opportunities for localized solutions to health and well-being challenges. There's also an opportunity to look at increasing the delivery of physical activity and sport opportunities across the school day, as well as the ability to enhance the notion and the concept that school is a safe and a welcoming environment that fosters student success. School boards and public health units will gain greater alignment between approaches if we're able to work together on this. We also believe that it will provide an improved ability to be able to achieve multiple educational and public health policy directives. We believe as well that if we're able to double down and focus on school health programming, that this will position Ontario as a leader in COVID-19 recovery, and that it will ultimately reduce the risk of chronic illness for children and youth, and down the line, reducing the burden on our provincial healthcare system. So in summary, I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to be able to present on this topic. And in summary, the focus around school health intervention sort of underpinned by the implementation of health and physical education curriculum, and related healthy active living curriculum being delivered through a healthy school community is a core consideration that the province should be looking at moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. We are definitely all in need of some physical education, especially after working from our desks all day. And after all, our healthy students are our successful students. I would like to remind you now to continue posting any questions you may have in the Q&A section. And now we're on to our final speaker of this series, who is someone whose love of food and health promotion led her to study nutrition and has years of experience in program development, management, and evaluation. Please welcome with me, Leslie Hansen.
Hello everyone. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. Loving Spoonful is situated on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. We acknowledge their enduring presence on this land, as well as the presence of Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across Turtle Island. We honor their cultures and celebrate their commitment to this land. Today I will be talking to you about Growing Stronger, Loving Spoonful's Grow Project. First, I will tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Leslie Hansen, and I am the Grow Coordinator at Loving Spoonful. I was born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Growing up in an agricultural city, I quickly developed an appreciation and passion for local food and healthy eating. My love of food and health promotion led me to study nutrition at the University of Manitoba, where I completed both a bachelor's and master's of science in human nutritional sciences. My master's was focused on agri-food research and the role of nutrition in disease management and prevention. I have years of experience in program development, management, and evaluation, including teaching diverse groups of people about the benefits of good food and healthy lifestyles. I love working with youth because childhood experiential learning opportunities help to set the foundation for lifelong healthy behaviors. I moved to Kingston in 2017 and joined Loving Spoonful in 2018. Loving Spoonful allows me to use my experience and passion to help build a strong, connected community around good food. As the Grow Coordinator, I am promoting food literacy, community, collaboration, and environmental stewardship while working to expand the program and make it a more sustainable, accessible resource for students and educators. I will give you an overview of what I'll be discussing today. First, I'll start by telling you about Loving Spoonful as an organization and the different program areas. Then I'll move to telling you about the Grow Project. We'll examine what it is, how it works, and the impact and outcomes of the project to date. After that, we'll discuss the impacts of COVID-19 on the Grow Project and the lessons learned over the last 2 years. And lastly, I'll tell you about our future plans moving forward for the project and our final thoughts. Loving Spoonful's mission is to build community around good food across Kingston and the area, providing programs and championing policies that build capacity in the local food system. We have 4 main program areas. The first one is our Fresh Food Access. This reclaims healthy food and distributes it throughout the city to people in need. Food is donated from grocery stores, restaurants, farmers, and community members, and distributed to our fresh food market stands and community agencies and organizations. Our urban agriculture program is working to getting Kingston growing. In order to build a more just food system, we need to massively increase the amount of food produced locally. Working with partners like the City of Kingston to increase the amount of food produced through our Community Gardens Network, Garden for Good Kingston, which is a Facebook group, and Community Harvest Gardens. Our Community Kitchens program aims to increase inclusivity and equity across socioeconomic boundaries through cooking and eating good food together. Workshops improve participants' food skills, knowledge, and literacy in safe environments while fostering peer-to-peer knowledge sharing and leadership. And our Grow Project, which is our school garden-based program that reconnects youth with their food, the environment, and their community, using place-based learning to develop healthy, community-minded, and eco-literate students. The Grow Project uses food and gardens as tools to examine topics relating to social justice, food security, food systems, culture, ecology, and climate change. Through 7 hands-on curriculum-connected in-class and outdoor workshops, students develop important life skills for long-term health and eco-literacy while building a connection to the world and their place in it. The Grow Project encourages students to develop an understanding of the need for resilient, sustainable food systems and their role in building a strong, connected community around good food. This map shows the Grow schools across Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington. There are 21 schools with over 890 students benefiting from the GROW project each year. We offer workshops for grades 4 to 8 and curriculum extensions for kindergarten to grade 3. Here's a list of workshops throughout the year for grades 4 to 6. The grade 7 to 8 workshops would expand upon these concepts. The first workshop is Salsa and Social Justice. Students learn about healthy food, social justice, and food security, and there's an optional cooking activity where students prepare and eat fresh salsa and hummus and see the transformation of produce from field to table. The grade 7 to 8 version of this would include the impact of poverty. The next workshop is Garlic in the Food System. Students learn about food systems from field to fork, and there's an optional garden activity of garlic planting. Then we have Kale and Culture. Students learn about cultural traditions related to food around the world, and there's an optional cooking activity where students make smoothies or corn and bean burritos using produce grown in their school garden. In grades 7 to 8, we would talk about culture, food, and the impact of colonization. Then we have our Healthy Gardens workshop, where students learn about healthy gardens, ecosystems, climate change, and how to care for their garden. They select which spring crops they want to plant and design their garden, and there's an optional activity where students start and care for seedlings in their classroom. Then we have the Seeds, Diversity, and Spring Crop Planting. We explore how gardening is one solution to environmental challenges, learn about seeds and the importance of diversity and environmental stewardship. There's an optional garden activity where students plant the garden, meet composting worms, and harvest seeds from the previous year's crop. Then we have our garden check-in, where we use the garden to learn and explore. We see which plants are coming up, crops versus weeds, and what natural elements are present. And lastly, we have our Salad Bar Celebration, which is a favorite workshop, where students harvest the produce from their garden, make salads, and celebrate their hard work and garden success. We have curriculum connections to make this program easy for teachers and not an extra thing to do. This diagram shows the curriculum links for each workshop. Teachers have told us that GROW ticks all the boxes. We have also linked the program to the Ministry of Education and school boards' strategic health and wellness priorities, which shows the value this program brings to schools. One of our goals is to build children's interest and enthusiasm around food and nature to reach through schools and into families and communities. This next video will help to describe this from a student's perspective.
We've learned about a lot of stuff. So mostly we've learned about food and how to prepare it and stuff like that. But we've also learned about community and how you can give to other people and it will be good for the community. And community links to food, because if you have like one type of crop in the whole garden, that won't be very good because they all have the same thing, so they won't be giving to each other. But if you have like a lot of different crops, like if you have peas, they put nitrogen into the soil, which helps other plants. Well, I think we should give to other people that are in need. Like this garden, we take some of our food, but we don't take all of it, and then we donate the rest to people who are in need.
The impact of the GROW project on students in the community are best understood through the voices of the participants. Every year we hear students saying things like, "I can't believe that I actually like kale." Teachers also see the benefits of this program too. One teacher from a school with a lower socioeconomic population has told us that his students with significant challenges in regular classrooms have connected with this program because the learning objectives are purposeful, so students exhibit levels of pride and self-worth that they cannot often obtain in traditional work. When students know that their hard work will be turned into something that will benefit other community and school members, their levels of motivation are unbeatably high. Teachers report that GROW helps to reduce students' fears with trying new foods, and many students are regularly sent to schools with foods that are processed or lack nutrients. Through experiences with GROW, students come to school with whole, less processed foods and mention that they are discussing different eating options with their families. The GROW project helps students foster healthy, eco-literate, and community-oriented behaviors to support their long-term health and well-being. When COVID hit, schools moved to emergency remote learning, so we had to adapt all of our workshops and materials to be online and virtual. Staff at both Loving Spoonful and in schools were overwhelmed and capacity was stretched. We learned that we need to better equip teachers to offer the program. In addition, garden access was limited, so students could not tend their gardens and teachers could not provide workshops within the garden. We were fortunate enough to be working with a professional evaluator at the time, from 2017 to 2020, so we were able to capture the impact of the beginning of COVID and use the findings to improve our project moving forward. The evaluation findings and COVID encouraged us to think of a new program model that is more sustainable with enhanced local community connections and virtual learning that is complemented by experiential outdoor learning components. We learned that clear communication and strong partnerships and relationships are key, and the creation of a process for schools to follow regarding the program, which includes timing for key actions and communications, is useful for accountability. We are utilizing existing strengths and resources, such as our relationship with teachers, schools, and the community to enhance opportunities within the program. From teacher feedback, we learned that it's important to make our materials adaptable and provide more flexibility within the program and workshops themselves. We need to focus on outdoor education, as more schools are wanting to use their natural environments for education. And one of the things we've heard time and again from students through our evaluation process was how much they liked and learned from hands-on activities, confirming the value of experiential learning. Lastly, we want to incorporate all of Loving Spoonful's programs into the GROW project. Our urban agriculture program provides opportunities for schools to visit local community gardens or farms to learn hands-on skills and the importance of agriculture, food justice, and sustainable food systems. We will offer cooking workshops through our Community Kitchens program, and produce grown in GROW gardens is shared among the school community, with the remainder donated to Loving Spoonful, which is delivered to local shelters and meal programs through our Fresh Food Access program. We have all had a challenging past 2 years with COVID, but these tough times have only made us more resilient. COVID has highlighted the importance of mental, emotional, social, and physical health and well-being, and the incredible resilience of strong communities. The GROW project is informed by place-based experiential education, which connects students to their food, environment, and community, helping to build resilience. We would like to thank everyone who helps us to make this program a success, including the school boards, teachers, students, and our wonderful community. Please connect with us. We would love to stay in touch. You can contact us through our website, or by email or by phone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. The exposure to healthy foods from early on will definitely have immensely positive results for all of these children. Now it is time that we open up the floor for some questions. We'd like to thank you for sending in your inquiries thus far, and please do continue any submissions that you have for our last presentation or all of our presenters, as we'll be circling back to these questions. So let's go back to the beginning, and our first question is directed towards Amanda. So one of the common talking points that this individual has heard about teachers was the short preparation time that they were given to respond to new pandemic developments. I'm wondering if you see a role for teachers in future discussions around pandemic response, preparedness, and planning at the local public health level.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, and I hope others in the chat will also add to the response as well. I was actually just reading this morning in the People for Education survey report from the Survey of Principals that came out this month that issue was highlighted there as well. And it was 100% our experience in public health about those no time to no heads up. We had minimal heads up as well. So I can empathize with that challenge and appreciate it. So in terms of emergency planning, there's definitely increased support in the literature for a collaborative approach to make sure, to engage the community, have everybody who might be affected play into the planning and response, so that we know that we're not just, fixing one problem and creating others. And so in the line of thinking, absolutely, schools as a stakeholder should be involved in whatever shape and form, and the various shapes and forms, I guess, that our emergency planning would take. And then who within the schools and how that's operationalized could be in lots of ways. But, in the big picture sense, absolutely, the more people we can engage in that planning, the better. And it just comes down to when it's actually playing out. And yeah, we definitely learned a lot about ways to engage each other and time things a little bit differently.
Absolutely, thank you. And I feel like it's hard moving forward with COVID still kind of in our rear view or in our current days to think about moving forward. Chris, we have a similar question for you, which is, how can we prepare our own school health programs to be flexible enough to accommodate future challenges, such as similar pandemics or other challenges?
I think that's a great question. I would, if I'm also to reflect on the last question, I think if and this is not politically whatever, it's tragic, right? We've gone through a global pandemic, and there were choices made all along the way to maybe not effectively engage some of the key stakeholders that were dealing with the day-to-day situations. And to think that wouldn't have an impact on our response to COVID at a local, provincial, regional level, I think such a missed opportunity. So maybe pulling that forward as we look at school health programming moving forward, I think that's the core to it, right? Like the solutions for I think much of the issues that are being managed at a local level are between the local partners. So Amanda spoke around comprehensive school health. We're fully in agreement, right? So the more that we can engage parents and public health and educators and students in the dialogue, the better. And so that's probably where I would put my focus, is the opportunities to enhance this concept of school connectedness between the various parties.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, all these things are so interconnected. So all the levels we can bring in, the more influence we're going to have. Moving on to Leslie, and a little bit of a different question for you. Are there any considerations for expanding the projects you talked about into other jurisdictions across the province or across the country?
Yes, absolutely. That is something that we're working on right now. So as you saw, we are currently in Kingston area, but we would love to expand, and we're working on one of our goals is to create a portal so that everyone can access it no matter where you are. So we would love this to be national, international. Everyone should be able to access it. Yes.
Fantastic. That would be great for sure. Let's go to a question kind of for everybody. So this person was wondering how First Nations schools and health promotion are often largely under federal or self-governing structures or funding, and understanding that public health units may provide limited amounts of services to these schools. So what are the thoughts and what are all your experiences working with First Nation schools? Would they like more support but have limited access to that support? Any kind of comments on that topic?
I can start off and just put our 2 cents as Ophia. So our perspective would be that residents, people within the province of Ontario, it doesn't necessarily matter where, you know, First Nations and whether they're on reserve or not. We provide all of our services to any that ask. I think that's probably all I would say on behalf of Ophia in terms of our mandate, is to be able to provide people who want support, and so any that come to us, we do our best to be able to service.
Fantastic.
I can
Yeah,
add to that.
Leslie. Perfect.
Sorry, I got that too. So ours, we're in different schools. There are First Nations people within these schools. We're not specifically in any schools on reserves or anything, but we are happy to be. We would love to connect with anybody who's interested, and we can discuss more about how we can bring programming or parts of our GROW program to them.
Fantastic. Yeah, Amanda, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so we offer everything that we offer to all of the schools. We offer to our parochial schools, we offer to our First Nation schools. So we work with one in the district of Timiskaming. There's one First Nation school on Bear Island. And so there's a physical access barrier. And I think I would say that we try to foster relationships and be able to appropriately offer any of our services, any different services even, or programming or whatever would support health in our First Nations school. We're on board to offer it. We're still learning how to do that well and have top of mind to reach out every time we reach out to our school boards to do it, you know, being frank, to do it appropriately, to do it in a timely way, to do it meaningfully. We're not as good at it as we should be. And so we're mindful of that and working on learning about that. But yeah, it's a work in progress, but we want to, and we're trying.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think that's something you mentioned in your talk, right? The concept of consistently learning and consistently working to be culturally appropriate and work towards that. Leslie, I saw you unmuted yourself. Did you have something to add to that?
I just 100% support what Amanda just said. That's exactly what we're trying to do as well.
Fantastic. Moving on, this question was directed towards Amanda, but I think that anyone who wants to add a specific kind of comment on this can. So the verb tense may be used in your presentation imply that the pandemic is over, when this does not currently seem to be the case. There is a great deal of uncertainty around the BA2 variant and reopening. How can we move forward while acknowledging that the pandemic is ongoing and not completely in our rear view?
Yeah, sure. I can start. That's a very valid question. And then I would add to that, even if the pandemic were in our rear view, we still have the next thing, right? And we have any million number of climate change related things. And we're learning that this type of disruption is actually going to be, I think what we're learning is we need to be nimble and ready to respond to many frequent smaller disruptions. And that needs to be our sort of normal state of affairs. The idea that we're in like this calm and then we'll have this massive disruption that we have to be ready for, and then we're back to calm again, I think may not be all that accurate. And that instead we need to have an approach that allows us to embrace frequent, regular change a little bit more. And that's a bit of a shift to think about. And I think that can apply to the question about, okay, the pandemic's not done, we need to be ready to adjust some more. And so that's what we're doing as part of our recovery efforts in our health unit, is to start thinking about how do we learn from what we just went through and be ready to make smaller shifts as we needed and not have to stop everything to, and then have to fix everything that we dropped. How do we find ways to keep things going? And so I don't have the answer, but I just have a recognition that that's, I think, going to be a bit more of our normal state of affairs. And we know that. And then same answer, we're learning and trying to work on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It seems like abnormal is our new normal, and we need all the kind of resilience we can get. Chris or Leslie, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that topic?
I'll just maybe flag that I'm going to say again, not necessarily any solutions. I think observationally, what we're starting to notice is that coming out of this, I'm not so sure that we've learned even some of the more recent lessons that we should have been learning. So we're starting to see investments being made, let's say, into school health programming that focus on one specific area. So there's a great concern, I would say, from OFIA's end of things that, we're going to come back and we're going to look at the best physical activity initiative or the best healthy eating one or the best mental health. Versus trying to, I think, take a bit of a broader perspective that a number of these things are interrelated, and that even as we're making some of these investments to return to normal or what have you, that we just need to be careful around how these things are zippered back together or in what form. And so I think that's a bit of a concern. I would also bring it back to just communications, right? Like from my perspective, probably some of the greatest learnings are around like, how do you effectively communicate changes in public health policy? How do you bring the population along with you? And I still think that like we've got some good learnings to do there. And maybe there's nothing wrong with just taking some time to think about what those are versus just jumping right back into specific programming, because there's a potential that more danger or damage will be caused as a result of that. So again, no maybe lessons, but maybe just some musings as hopefully we emerge. But yeah, we'll see, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Some time to reflect would maybe be valuable. I think we have time for one more question, and this kind of touches on what you just said, that communication piece, which is I'm wondering if any of you have some thoughts on innovative ways that public health can go about connecting and reconnecting, rebuilding and communicating with relationships with families who may have been distanced or disenfranchised with public health over the course of this pandemic. And Leslie, I saw you unmuted yourself too, so if you have a comment on that one or the other question, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. I can't really speak to the public health aspect, but we're trying to connect as much as possible. And one thing I was going to say to the previous question was the COVID has been a great opportunity for us to pause and look at our program and reassess it and create more of a sustainable version going forward in general. But we're really focusing on outdoor education and experiential learning. So we realize that outdoor education is much safer than in the classroom with pandemics and things like this happening. And experiential learning is something that students have missed out upon in the past few years. So we're really focusing on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think we could all do with a little bit of outdoor time and some experiential learning these days. Tired of sitting in front of the computer screen, right? Chris or Amanda, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that one?
I would defer to Amanda as the public health person on this panel. Yeah.
Putting her on the spot.
That's okay. I don't have anything innovative. I just have, it's practices that have worked in the past. We've experienced, ideological divides before, and we've used strategies to bridge them, like finding common ground and active listening and giving space and time for conversations to really listen to each other and understand. I think we need to slow down and the reflection that Chris and Leslie have talked about, like we just need a whole lot of that. And that would be with families and parents to try to rebuild relationships and trust. And so, yeah, it's not innovation. It's just old-fashioned stuff that has worked in the past and that I know that we have the skills to do.
Fantastic. I think that's a great approach moving forward. So with that, it is now 1 o'clock and I would like to wrap up our session today. We'd like to thank all of our speakers for our stellar presentations and our thoughtful discussions here with us today. We'd like to thank all of our participants for joining today. We hope you enjoyed our webinar series, Resilience, Recovery, and Renewal in Health Promotion. Your feedback is highly valued and we'd love to hear from you in the post-session evaluation, which has been shared in the chat, and you can scan the QR code or type the link on the screen. You can also stay connected with Health Promotion Ontario on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, and don't forget to register to get exclusive member benefits. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our team, and we hope you all have a lovely weekend.